As you embark on your journey to becoming a software engineer, it's important to have a strong foundation of skills to build upon. In this video, I'll provide an overview of key foundational skills to build up as you go on your journey to becoming a software engineer. There will also be a bunch of resources for each topic I mention down in the description below. So it's also worth noting that there are many different fields within software engineering, each with their own different unique tools and technologies that you might be required to learn. For example, if you wanted to be a back-end engineer, you might be required to know Python in order to work with back-end code. And if you wanted to be a mobile developer that maybe developed apps for iPhones, you may be required to work with Swift. However, by focusing on building a strong foundation in the fundamentals, you'll find it a lot easier to pick up new tools and technologies as you progress. I've compiled up a list of key concepts and skills that will help get you started and build up your strong foundations in full stack development and programming. For each topic I cover, like I previously mentioned, I will drop some resources in the description of what I think is best to help you learn this topic. And quickly, before we jump into the video, to those of you that have already subscribed, thank you. And to those that may have not yet subscribed, if you're considering a career within software engineering or you're already on the path to becoming a developer, well then please make sure to hit subscribe. I have a lot more useful content on the way and you don't want to miss out on valuable tips and advice that may help you succeed in your journey. So, the first thing that you want to do when you're starting out learning to code is ask a question, why? Why do I want to become a software engineer? Why do I want to learn to code? These are all questions that you should ask yourself. And while it could be solely for the money, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, I do believe you should explore your curiosity a bit deeper and find a good reason and a good motivator to learn to code and become a software engineer and pursue a career in this field. And once you do find that reason, the late nights and long hours studying will become a lot easier. And the path you need to take will become a lot clearer. For example, you might dive into web development and you actually find out you really enjoy making web applications. You have lots of ideas for websites you want to build and the projects you can think of are endless. Or you might dive into mobile development and actually find out you really enjoy making apps for iPhones and you have tons of ideas. In this case then you'd know you need to build up a strong foundation in the fundamentals and then you'll be able to pivot down the path of becoming a mobile developer. My point is that I think you should spend some time thinking about why. Try to really find what interests you and what you like, and then you could find something that really interests you, motivates you and you're actually quite passionate about. Now, so with an understanding of why you want to pursue a career in software engineering or learn to code, so let's go about the process of how we can start to build up good foundational skills for full stack development and programming to help us on our journey to becoming a software engineer. So, the first thing we're going to need is an IDE, an integrated development environment. An IDE is a software application that allows us to run, debug and do a bunch of other stuff with our code. There are multiple options out there for this. NetBeans, JetBrains, IntelliJ, but personally I would recommend going with Visual Studio Code. That is my favourite and that is one I'd recommend, but again feel free to explore them and find one you like. So now that we have an IDE, a place to run and write our code, let's get started. So the first part I would start off learning is front-end development. The main reason I'd start here is because I believe it's a great starting point in writing your first piece of code. I feel like it's easiest to understand and mainly it's interactive, meaning any changes you make are going to be visible straight away in front of you. Front-end development or client-side development involves building the user interface of web applications. This includes things like the layout, design, buttons and other interactive elements of a web page a user sees whenever they visit a website. So the first thing we're going to learn in front-end development is HTML. HTML, Hypertext Markup Language, is used to structure and format the contents of a web page. Essentially, it's the building blocks of a website. Here we should start learning about what HTML is, what it's used for, and how we can use HTML tags to structure the contents of a web page. We should then start looking into a bit more advanced HTML, like how to create forms, add images to our web page, and videos. Once we're getting comfortable with HTML, and we feel like we have good knowledge about all the tags and how it's used to structure the contents of a web page, we should be at the stage where we're able to build 5 basic web pages using HTML tags. Once we're at that stage, we can then move on to the next tool that helps us style these web pages to make them go from this to this. So, in order to style our web pages, we'll need to use CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. This is a style sheet language used for describing the look and the format of a document written in HTML. This allows us to take basic plain HTML text on a web page and style it into something more appealing and more like an actual website we would normally see. We should learn the basics of CSS and how it works, the syntax of all the different rules, common properties such as font size, background color, and learn how we can use CSS to control the layout of a web page. We should spend a decent amount of time on this and get to the stage where we're comfortably able to give our basic websites some nice styling using CSS. Once we have these skills down, HTML and CSS, we should start having a bit of momentum. We should feel at this point that we're making good progress with our learning. And looking back, it's easy to see the progress we've already made. We're now able to do basic front-end development, but what about the back-end? Back-end is coming, but first, let's dive into some general programming concepts. These concepts will help build a good foundational knowledge that will be easily transferable across multiple different languages in the future. So let's dive in and see how we can get started learning to program and what fundamentals we need to learn. When we are programming, we're using a language to write instructions to tell the computer what to do. And although there are a lot of different programming languages, general programming concepts will be transferable across multiple languages once you understand the fundamentals. So for this, we're going to need to pick a programming language. I wouldn't get too caught up in this. Personally, although I used Java in college, if I was starting out now, I'd probably pick Python. Mainly because I believe that it's easiest to understand and get started with. So now that we've picked our language, let's dive into some programming concepts that we're going to have to learn. I would go through these different ones and learn them thoroughly. Then do exercises and problems related to them to give you a better understanding. For example, after you learn about input and output, do lots of exercises on them, but make sure to spend a decent amount of time on these. They will be harder for us to understand, but with a good amount of time and work put in, things will start to become a bit clearer and soon you'll start to understand things. These topics cannot be rushed, as a solid understanding of these will be needed before we can move on to more advanced topics. And if you don't learn these well, you'll only suffer when you come to move on. And also, once you've learned these, start to explore your curiosity a bit. You now have a few skills in the toolbox that you didn't have before. Try to think of a real world problem that you're having. It could be a little problem that you can now solve through the use of your code. So once you have these basic concepts down and you're getting a bit comfortable with the syntax of your chosen programming language, it's time to move on to something a bit more advanced. Object-oriented programming. OOP is a programming paradigm that is based on the concepts of objects. These objects can then contain data and code that can manipulate the data. We should spend some time learning this paradigm. We should start learning about what is object-oriented programming and why is it useful. Why is it important and what are some of the use cases of it? This will help give us an understanding of why we are actually doing this and why we're about to start learning this. With a basic high level understanding of what OOP is and some of the benefits of it, we can then dive in and start learning some OOP concepts. And the first thing we should start learning about is classes and objects. We should look into classes and objects and learn exactly what they are, understanding the difference between a class and an object, and heavily research what they are, while doing some exercises along the way. Now, with classes and objects out of the way, there are several key object-oriented programming concepts we need to understand. Inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, and encapsulation. As a beginner and starting out in programming, understanding these concepts is crucial for developing your skills further. These core object-oriented programming fundamental concepts allow you to write well-organized, maintainable, and adaptable code. By understanding and applying these concepts, you'll be able to write code that can handle changes and growth with ease. And it's not just about reading about these concepts, it's about implementing them within your code and doing exercises along the way. So, at this point we have basic front-end skills down. Now that we have some front-end down, it's time to start working on our back-end skills. Back-end development is the process of building and maintaining the server side of the web application. It involves writing code that runs on servers and handles tasks such as storing and retrieving data from databases, processing user requests, and handling security. It's important to learn back-end development as a software engineer because it's essential for building complete web applications and understanding how different components of applications interact with each other. To start learning back-end development, it's important to first understand the basics of databases. You can learn about database design, normalization and denormalization, and how to write basic SQL statements using MySQL. MySQL is one of the most popular open source relational databases, and there are many resources available to help you learn how you can use it. You can start by installing and experimenting with MySQL on your local machine, or by taking online tutorials and courses. Once you have a good understanding of databases and SQL, you can start learning a back-end development programming language such as Python, JavaScript or Java. These languages are commonly used for back-end development and have a wealth of resources available to help you learn. After you have a basic understanding of databases and the programming language of your choice, you can then, if you'd like, to start looking into some web frameworks such as Express.js for Node.js, Flask for Python, or Spring for Java. These frameworks provide structure for building web applications and make it easier to handle common tasks like handling user requests and working with databases. You can also find many tutorials and online courses that will help you learn how to use these technologies, and practice is the key to master back-end development, and you should start by building small projects. As you progress, you'll be able to build more and more complex projects and expand your knowledge. The next skill we're going to look at is essential for bringing the front end to life. That skill is JavaScript. JavaScript is a programming language that is commonly used in web development to add interactivity between websites. It's often used alongside HTML and CSS to help build more dynamic websites. With JavaScript, developers can build elements such as interactive buttons, drop-down menus, and interactive forms. JavaScript is an essential tool for building engaging and interactive websites, and it is a crucial skill for any advanced front-end developer to have. The fact that we have previously looked at and learned the fundamental programming concepts that I mentioned earlier, things like variables, data types and functions, will make JavaScript a bit easier to pick up and understand, as we should now understand and be familiar with some of the code we're looking at. And once we work our way through learning some JavaScript and we're getting comfortable with it, and we're able to understand some basic JavaScript and interact it within our websites, we can then move on to look at a JavaScript framework. So, in order to take our development skills up a notch, we can start looking at a JavaScript framework. JavaScript frameworks are tools that provide developers with pre-written code libraries and structures to make building web applications simpler. Examples of well-known JavaScript frameworks include React, Angular, and Vue.js. These frameworks help developers create large, complex and interactive web applications by offering a structure for code and hiding some of the more technical details. You should pick one of your choice. I would recommend either React, Angular or Vue.js. You should then spend some time looking through documentation and tutorials, learn about the basic concepts and components, and even try build out some really small projects using one of these frameworks. Keep practicing by building out small projects in order to improve your skills. Another useful skill to learn, and something that you will come in contact with a lot as a programmer and a software engineer, is the command line interface. The command line, also known as the terminal or shell, is a text-based interface for interacting with computers' operating systems. In the command line interface, we can communicate with the operating system or software by entering commands through a text interface. It's an important tool to learn as you become a programmer, as it allows you to quickly and efficiently perform tasks such as running programs, navigating the file system, making scripts, and managing files. And it is definitely a skill that you should spend some time learning and getting familiar with. So, another useful tool that you will need to learn as a developer is knowing how to use version control software such as Git. Version control software is a system that tracks changes to a file or a set of files over time. Software like Git allows us developers to easily collaborate on projects and revert back to previous versions if necessary. A good way to understand Git is to think of it sort of like a camera. Just like a camera takes pictures of important moments, Git takes snapshots of your code at different points in time, allowing you to go back and view the changes you've made. Git is widely used within the software industry, and if you become a developer, you're going to be working with it. GitHub is a web-based platform on top of Git that provides a UI for collaborating on projects. Both Git and GitHub are really good skills to learn on your journey to becoming a software engineer. So, I have two more important skills that you should probably learn on your journey to becoming a software engineer to take your skill to the next level. These two skills, I believe, are what takes a good developer to a great developer. And one of them is a key component in helping you land your first job as a software engineer. So, the first thing that I think you should spend some time learning is design patterns. Design patterns are pre-designed solutions to common problems in software design that can be reused in different projects. There are three main categories of design patterns: creational, structural, and behavioral. Creational patterns deal with object creation mechanisms. Structural patterns deal with object composition, and behavioral patterns deal with communication between objects. It is recommended to practice using design patterns through small projects and exercises to gain hands-on experience and solidify your knowledge. Design patterns in software engineering can be compared to tools in a builder's toolbox. Just as a carpenter has a variety of different tools available to them to carry out their tasks, a software engineer has a bunch of design patterns that they can use to help solve different design problems within their code. These patterns provide a common language and a set of best practices that can be used to communicate design solutions to other members of a development team. Knowing and understanding design patterns is important within software engineering because it allows us developers to write more maintainable and scalable code, and to more easily identify and solve design problems as they arise. So with that out of the way, this brings me on to the last thing that I think you should learn on your journey to becoming a software engineer. And this one will really help you in landing your first software engineering job. So, data structures and algorithms. Having a strong understanding of data structures and algorithms is crucial for any aspiring software engineer that wants to do well in the field and land a really good first job. Having a strong understanding of data structures and algorithms is crucial for any aspiring software engineer. Data structure and algorithms involves knowing how to effectively store and organize data, including selecting the right data structures and using the appropriate algorithms to manipulate and process the data. Proficiency in data structure and algorithms allows us to write efficient and scalable code. It is also a common focus within technical interviews in software engineering. So, having strong data structure and algorithm skills can significantly improve your chances of getting hired. In summary, data structure and algorithms is essential for anyone who is looking to excel and become a great software engineer. So, now that we've spent some time learning all these tools and technologies and we have some skills under our belt and we're feeling comfortable, it's time that we start building out some projects. You should probably aim to have at least 6 to 10 projects ranging from easy to hard before you start applying for any jobs. To improve your skills and showcase your abilities, it's important to continuously be practicing your skills and also be building out small projects. As you work on projects, aim to create a portfolio of your work to demonstrate your capabilities to potential employers. If there is enough interest, I can release a video showing you how to create and host a professional looking portfolio website online. This portfolio could showcase your projects using live demonstrations and links to your GitHub. When you have all your projects done in your portfolio and you've put together a solid resume, you should then start applying for jobs. You won't feel ready, but just jump in and apply because you're never going to feel ready. And even if you don't get the job the first, the 100th, the 1000th time, you'll gain valuable information with each interview, and you'll gain knowledge and experience by asking questions on where you went wrong or what you can do to improve. Keep learning and growing, and eventually you'll land your first job. In the meantime, try to get as many interviews as possible to practice and improve your skills. Remember, it's going to take a lot of time and hard work and failures to achieve and land your first job as a junior software engineer. But with lots of dedication, effort and hard work, that day will eventually come when you get your first offer and you'll land your first job. So with all that being said, do remember that this is just a rough outline for the things you may want to learn on your journey to becoming a programmer, learning to code and landing your first software engineering job. There are many other different skills and knowledge that you will gain along the way, and there's probably multiple different things I left out. I do welcome feedback from others to what you believe are valuable skills that you need to learn as a junior and key skills to learn when you first start learning to code. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, well then please do consider subscribing.